Brittany, I'm super excited to have you join me today.
Thanks for having me.
So obviously for people that may not have heard of you before, can you share a little bit about your journey and who you are and what the company you work for and your function here?
Yeah, so I'm the VP of Marketing for Meridian IT. I run the marketing department. We have worked together at various companies before. I started my marketing career back in 2002. Oh, wow. And what I started it in was really just small startup companies. I was employee number 5 for a company called Survey Gizmo out in Colorado. And that's really where I learned all my marketing chops. I had no budget. I was bootstrapped. I sat next to the developers and we were just building all the time, right? We were experimenting. We were, as the startup world likes to say, we were failing fast all the time and just trying to figure out what worked, what didn't work with $0. So as I grew, right, I moved back to Chicago. I'm from Chicago, and I was able to work for some bigger companies. I worked for the Chicago Tribune. Only worked there for 6 months because when you go from working for a small startup where you can get everything done versus working for this like behemoth, and I worked on like the 28th floor and my developers were in the basement, and I was only allowed to talk to them once a week to try and get stuff done, and I was running multiple websites. There was a lot of red tape, so I jumped back into startup world in the Chicago startup scene and really grew my career from there and moved on to sort of where I am now.
Yeah. So you had some experiences in the early days working for B2B to B2C or some B2C. And then most of your recent experience have all been on the B2B and primarily on the tech and professional service service industry. So can you talk a little bit about kind of the B2C experience, what you saw working in that sector to now working in the B2B, and what are some transferable strategy that you saw?
Yeah, so B2C was really interesting, right? So on the B2C side of things, when I first started with the insurance quoting company, it was, again, B to B2C, where we were running a website. This was back in the day when Google had basically just started running advertising. So I was in charge of paid search. SEO was awesome. Like SEO was back in the wild west where, do you remember where they would do like, where you would like, you put the keyword somewhere and your page would come up like the next day, or like, this is great. And so we were, what the insurance quoting company did was we would help consumers find the right insurance agents. So on the B2C side, right, we were making sure that we ranked really high so that the consumers could get those quotes from the insurance agents. But then what we also did, right, was we sold the information to the different insurance agents so that they could get the quotes. So it was the B2B, the B2C side. I think the most interesting part of that was it allowed me to figure out, do I like working on the B2C side, or do I like working on the B2B side, or do I like working a little bit of both? I transitioned over to the survey software company, and when I was there, that was mostly B2B, right? There was a little bit of a freemium model, which was like, again, right at the beginning of freemium. And we figured that if we gave access to our survey software to kids in college or really focused on that, then they would use that and bring it with them in their business world, and then we would get those business contracts. It was also where one of my more exciting link building techniques came in, where we would give discounts. Now, this is not allowed anymore, but it worked back then. We would give discounts to nonprofits if they link back to our website, and we would give them like 75% off, because we knew the value was that link, not necessarily like the value to them obviously was the software, but it really was the link. And we were able, because of that, right, to build all of these .org links and .edus. We had a ton of .edus, and it was a really great way. But that also cemented my, I'd really like to work on the B2B side because I feel like working company to company, it's not necessarily, it's the company's budget, right? Versus a consumer's budget. They buy very similarly, right? So they're still buying because of how they feel and things and fulfilling the needs. So from a marketing standpoint, it was very similar, but it just from a budgetary standpoint, I liked going that route instead.
Yeah. Obviously, like, there's been a lot of changes happen, like you said, in the early days of Google.
It was awesome.
So much easier.
Yeah.
You could do things that were just innovative and new, and a lot of things were a lot easier to do. But more and more marketers are spending their dollars on digital, and that investment has, crowded that space, and it became difficult to kind of stay out in the noise. So what are some of the areas where you've kind of shifted, or you've seen the changes that you had to make from a marketing strategy?
Well, I think too, that's where ABM came to play, right? So back in the olden days, right, of like olden days of digital, when we could just throw a whole bunch of money at paid search and we'd get people to convert on websites right away, that was the easiest route to market. Now it's shifting to probably what it was more similar in the 90s, but more targeted, where it's not a spray and pray type of method. It's a very targeted account-based marketing. And I've seen that transition probably starting in 2019-ish, I think, was when really all of those companies started coming out, like your demand base, all of those guys. It was the explosion. I think right before the pandemic, it was more of the explosion of all of the ABM companies. And throughout the last couple of years, right, they've consolidated. But the theory and how you go to market remains the same. The most successful thing that we've seen from a ABM standpoint is you have to get everyone's buy-in. And everyone means not just the marketing team thinks it's a good idea, we need to do it. It's from the top up. Like we needed the CEO to send intro emails. We need the head of sales, whoever aligns the most. Whoever's title is the one that is going to resonate with whoever you're going after is who needs to be sending those emails. And that's how it works, right? It's not just marketing, sending pretty packages and just like hoping that it will work.
Yeah. And I think if you think about it, the ABM strategy, even though marketing adapted with more technology-enabled ABM, I think that strategy has been always wrong.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the salespeople always had their dream 100 customers that they were just
exactly,
but it was just sales-driven mostly. And now marketing figured out there's a more efficient way to reach those accounts and trade and influence the account with multiple people, seeing content and engaging in conversation that beats to that. And in terms of like efficiency too, right? Your marketing dollars are much more efficiently spent as opposed to just, like I said, spray and pray and hoping that the right person obviously was looking for what you had to.
Well, and you have, right, your one-to-one marketing, your one-to-some and one-to-everyone. And what we have transitioned is to mostly one-to-some and one-to-one. Going after those big whales, that's our ABM strategy, and then the one-to-some is more targeting marketing automation through HubSpot, things like that, so that we can get those people. But in order for them to come to us, they have to be showing intent and engagement. Because if we are not sending anything like that to anyone on our team, if we don't see any type of intent or engagement, and those are factors, right, that we didn't have 2012, like we didn't know no one was tracking any type of intent. We could see engagement, obviously, of downloads and things like that. So you assumed an intent, but now you just have all this data to really go after.
Yeah, most certainly. And I think, obviously you said a lot of changes have happened, right? What are some of the things that historically you've done, you continue to do? Are there like events or things like that you're seeing making a comeback, or you're continuing to invest in some of the traditional tried and true methods?
Yeah, I think that still we're experimenting with direct mail. It's not the same as I work for Beltone, which was a hearing aid company, and our target market skewed older for obvious reasons, right? And so we had to use a lot of direct mail because that's what they trusted. That's where I learned all about direct mail and mail shops, and all of that was through there. We're leveraging some of that. Again, not the spray and pray method, but very targeted direct mail pieces that are coming back. Also, I think the other thing is some events, but it's tricky, right? So you have to figure out the time of year, what is really going to get someone to leave their home or leave their office. And I mean, in Chicago, right? If we're having an event in Chicago, it's also like, what's the weather? Where are we located? Is it going to snow? Or is it at like the Cubs game? So it's all of that of understanding the value of your consumer's time and what's going to make them come to places. So if we're doing like small events, we're testing them out. For years, it was hard stuff. We're not doing any events. No one's leaving their houses. Like everyone is getting that work from home. I think now that a lot of companies are transitioning to hybrid, or like, is it Amazon that just said, hey, we're going to go return to office? I think a lot of those people, as we watch that happen, we're going to be able to do more of those lunch and learn events because they're just going to want to get out like they used to, right? Like they're in the city, they're in the suburbs, they need a break, come over to the lunch and learn. I think that's what we'll probably see, but there are some more events and trade shows and things like that we're just used to going to that we'll continue to go to. But I think some of the other strategies that we're seeing is, hey, our customer is going to this trade show or this conference, and we don't necessarily need a booth at the conference. We can invite them to dinner on the side because we're not getting the traditional leads, or we're getting more spray and pray type of leads, and those aren't the ones that we necessarily are going to want to work. We want to work the ones that, again, are showing intent and engagement. We've done research on them. We know who they are. So the value is more along the lines of, let's go have lunch or host a happy hour, a little offsite, and have you come and get that face time and do all that.
Yeah, I was just at Inbound a couple of months back, and it was just every evening, the amount of networking events happening hosted by either the sponsors were exhibiting there or just companies in general wanted to attract that audience that were at the conference. It was just crazy. Every restaurant that you walked out,
booked right away. Yeah.
It was just crazy. Everybody had the Inbound linear and walking around.
Because think about it, like there's people who are going to, like, I'd go to Inbound to learn, right? But if you're having a happy hour there, of course I'm going to stop by and chat with you, right? But if you have a booth, I'm probably not going to go to the booth, right? But if you want to go and like have an informal discussion, of course, we've been clients together for what, 6 years?
Yeah.
So of course I'm going to go stop by. But the booth, I'm not going to generate like any net new leads from that. That's not who I'm going after.
Yeah. So, and especially if you're not in the market for something specifically, you're not actively looking for something.
You're just going to get people get tchotchkes, and then that's not a great.
Exactly.
But we do have some events that we go to. We have like an ed tech event that we go to every year. We have specific within our ICP, an IBM event, a couple IBM events. We do speaking engagements and all of that to help from a brand awareness standpoint. Not necessarily lead gen, but more brand awareness. That's where those events are coming into play.
Where more and more companies are now investing heavily into, because that thought leadership and demonstrating the expertise of that brand by featuring some of their subject matter experts within the company, right? Which gives them credibility in the market, increases the likelihood of considering that brand.
Exactly. Well, because they're a real person, right? Like I think right now there's a lot of question around cybersecurity and is this a real person? Is this a real company? All of that, even when hiring, right? Or like recruiting and things like that. People are getting scammed all the time. I think they want to do their due diligence. I think that's actually one of the biggest things that has changed is that the buying cycle, right? So we used to, top of funnel, we need to do all of this stuff to like get someone in right away. Most of top of funnel, middle of funnel leads now, the person is doing all their research by themselves. They get to us and like want to actually talk to us way down at the bottom. Like they've done all their research. So we have to make sure that we have all of that content, all that collateral, all of that stuff for them to easily find and be seen as the expert. Like that's why it's so important to be seen as the expert.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I know like in the early days, right, gated content was the way to get the top of people to convert. And I personally hate downloading because I just don't want to give my information because I know SDR is going to reach out to me and fill out the market.
But if it was something that you were super interested in, right, and you would probably give them your information, right?
But I also,
once you've researched for 20 hours.
Yeah, I'm also more curious about like, give me value of what I want to learn and don't withhold information from me that's going to help me make my decision better.
True, like case studies,
So why gate those things, right? So what's your personal take as a marketer when you see, you're trying to learn about a MarTech product and you go to them and they have like, oh, here's the ABM playbook, but you got to give your email and your full name and your maiden name and everything to get it.
Well, okay, so I do that. And the reason why is I want to see the plays that they're running. I want to see their follow-up. So it's more research on my end. So I also, this is probably a unpopular opinion. When it comes to LinkedIn, I accept all requests because I want to see how the SDR follows up. I know, right, it's an SDR play or BDR play. I want to see how they're doing it so that I can leverage or say like, and I've actually stopped calls in sale, like during like sales calls for MarTech stack things and say, can I have your deck? I really like how your deck looks and flows so I can bring it to my team. So I like getting sold to from
just learning
reverse engineering, seeing what works and seeing how they're doing it. That's a me thing though, right? That's not what my ICP likes. My ICP is similar to you in that like if they have the information, that they want to get access to it. So we are transitioning a lot of things to ungated. So, and we know, again, since we know the targets, right? We know the intent, we know typically they're already in our database. So we know what they're doing on the back end with like HubSpot side of things.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the main thing we're also experimenting with too, because if you can kind of tell the company was on your website, even if you don't know the individual that was there, but if it's in your ABM list, hey, that company had 5 different individuals from that company were consuming these content pieces.
Right.
Now your SDR team can be a little bit more proactive in identifying that buyer persona within that organization, and then trying to make sure that you're trying to have a proactive conversation starter, right?
Exactly.
Instead of waiting for them to fill out a form. But the reason I mentioned like being a marketer, I almost now immune to this form stuff because as soon as I see it, I just know mentally what the play is, right? So I'm like,
I know, but don't you want to you want to see what everyone else is doing and like taking like their like pieces? Like, yeah.
Idea of hacking back what the heck they're trying to stop, like, that play they're doing. But I'm also being more protective of my inbox lately because the amount of cold outreach that we all get and the amount of is just making our life, right? But being a marketer, so that's another thing, right? How are you also being empathetic about your customer that you're marketing to? Because if you're selling to high value CIOs, CTOs, these guys are not easy to get to, and email is probably one of the hardest way to reach them because they're inundated with a lot of stuff. So how are you both? Yeah, you want to sell at the same time. You're also empathetic to their role and their
well, and that's where sort of like having these events, like if they are looking to go to today, I think actually right now there is a Gartner IT symposium that's happening, and we don't have a booth, but we have people there that can go find these people, talk to them in person because they're going to learn, but then we'll invite them out to like happy hour, dinner, host a happy hour, things like that, so that we can get in front of them face to face. Because we know, right, email, the only nice thing about like the whole SDR play of email, phone call, LinkedIn touches, things like that, is that you're again validating that you're a big enough company, that you're a real company. You're taking the time so that when they see your logo again at this Gartner IT symposium, or if they're talking to other people, that they recognize it. So it's like this weird just juxtaposition of a brand play and a demand play all at the same time, so that you're just recognizing the brand. Because Meridian IT, right, we aren't the largest company in the world. We are a medium-sized company. So I need to make sure that our brand is recognizable.
Yeah. And I think that's a big shift for a lot of marketers and even the finance department to recognize, because a lot of times marketing was able to attribute every dollar, where it went and how it contributed to additional contacts created or revenue. But sometimes a lot of these brand awareness efforts may not have a direct correlation to revenue, because, hey, we exhibited there, or we fed 50 guys at a conference.
Exactly.
But did it create opportunities immediately? No. But now when we do have a conversation in the future, they recognize our brand. So our likelihood of winning that deal is much higher. But I can't pinpoint, which to me also, like, so I have a very analytical brain, drives me nuts. But I know, right? I know that the investment is worth it. And I think that's the change. And I saw this somewhere on LinkedIn. So whoever wrote this first, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you credit because I don't remember who it was. But it's changing the idea from marketing budget to marketing investment, right? And so you're investing in the brand, you're investing in demand gen and things like that. It sort of changes the way that you see budget needs to be measured, needs to have ROI in everything that you do, versus this is the holistic, this is brand, this is demand, this is the marketing ops, all of it together. Yeah.
Product.
How are you actually getting the leadership to buy into that? Because that's a big sell sometimes for leadership to say, yeah.
They're actually seeing it. So I think that's the proof is in the pudding, right? Is that we are now getting more people coming inbound to us. We are now, when someone goes to a meeting, a salesperson goes to a meeting, they say, oh, we're from Meridian IT, or like they're at a conference. The person on the prospect will say, oh yeah, I've heard of you. And I think that's the buy-in of like, okay, we're doing our job. We know that people are, the buying cycle is a bit longer, but we're really getting in front of people, and that, oh yeah, I've heard of you, really is the thing that's happening.
That's the one thing that I think no one has figured it out. But how do you put the dollar value on the
We need to figure this out.
Yes, the brand reputation and the brand equity. Because that sometimes I talk to customers and I tell them, like, you built a brand equity. Even what you and I were just talking off camera, like when people buy another business, a lot of times they don't value the brand equity,
right,
or the brand that they acquired. Oftentimes they're buying the asset, the customers, and
exactly
some of that people and the human capital. They invest into that, but they say, oh, the website and the brand
we're taking over everything. And like, yeah.
But that brand equity, that trust that you created in the marketplace, that has so much value. That, like you said, even though it's a long sales cycle, later on, they'll be like, hey, I've been seeing this company, I've consumed their content, I trust their brand. And when time comes to make a purchase, oftentimes that decision has a lot to do with some of the other intangible they have in their mind, not just
the financial benefit. It's the, oh, I trust them. Oh, I know this brand. Oh, this brand is being used by X, Y, and Z. Therefore, they must be a good company, and all of that. Yeah.
That's to say, right? If nobody ever got fired for hiring
buying IBM. Yep. Yeah.
I don't know if that's true anymore.
No, I think they still say it. that. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There's a saying that if you want to get anything done, give it to a busy mom, right? You are a mom of two. You are running this marketing team here, working for a global company. So there's a lot on your plate. What advice would you give other marketers and business leaders who actually have, busy family life and business and all of those? How do you balance all of that?
I think the way I balance it is like doing what I love. So I genuinely love marketing. I think we could talk about this all day long. We've been here for a while and we've been just talking marketing all day. But the balance is interesting, right? So not only do I run the marketing department, I also coach both of my sons in soccer. This is the cheesiness of it, is like, it takes a village. I was telling you before, my parents live 8 doors down, right? And my husband is hyper supportive. He has a big job too. So we have to get everyone sort of involved. It's a lot of moving pieces, but it's a lot of things that we enjoy. it's valuing, figuring out what you value and going after that, right? So I value my family. I value having my kids' grandparents in their lives. So that's really important to me. So I want to make sure we specifically moved 8 doors down so that they could all be together, and so that we had sort of the built-in infrastructure. It's sort of, right, it's similar to like just building a house, right? You have to like build in your general infrastructure, and then you can make it go. I mean, some days get a little crazy and we have to like just relax a little bit and like be zen, but I think it's just doing everything that you love is really what it is there's no.
So what advice would you give business leaders about, encouraging, obviously you want your employee to have a work-life balance, right? Like what advice would you give them in terms of recognizing and maybe even finding out what's going on in an individual contributor's life to make sure that they're catering to their need, so they can contribute the best to the organization's role?
Well, I think it's flexibility, right? And then also just trusting them, right? You want to work in a place that you don't hire someone that you don't trust. Otherwise, you wouldn't hire them. So I think remembering that in the back of your head of like, I trust them. Are they getting their job done? Okay, great. Are they passionate, or do they love the job? Okay, we trust them completely. And I think is the biggest part is always remembering the why. Why are you doing this? Why did you hire them? And you hired them because you trust them. And there's a saying, right, that believe people when they show you who they are, or something along those lines. That working moms are going to show you who they are. That you may get emails at crazy hours, but it's because their brains are working 100 miles a minute all the time. And I think that's the thing. And typically, if they're doing that, they're loving all of the things that they're juggling. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing.
Yeah. And I think he's being considerate of their season in life, right? So like the kids are young and in school and have sports and all of those things, right? It's so flexibility, and some of them get sick and you got to leave it.
Yeah.
Hey, take them to the doctor.
Gotta go to the doctor, but they're still gonna get the job done, and they're thinking about the job, and just having, I think now with the way, even from when we started our careers, right, flexibility just couldn't happen. Versus now, like my phone, I can do a ton of stuff. If I'm sitting working, or if I'm sitting watching soccer practice, I can make sure that all my emails are getting done, and I can coordinate. I can have meetings from the soccer field, right? That's something that we couldn't do before. And it's just the productivity that can be done in a remote plus a hybrid plus whatever type of workforce is just exponentially more than what you could have been doing 15 years ago.
Yeah, the one good thing that ever came out of COVID is that it gave a lot more flexibility to family, and to have a career and still be able to have a family life.
Oh yeah, but do you remember during COVID having that was a little crazy. We had I think I had a 10-month-old and a 3-year-old, and it was crazy. But again, flexibility, and we all got through it, and we all thrived. So I think that was the hardest test I think a lot of us had when it comes to work-life balance, because there was no balance, because we're all home, we're all doing everything all at once. And I think now that we're out of it, it just feels like we can do a lot more.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody has to be investing in themselves, right, to grow and get better, right? And if you get 1% better every day, right, it's an exponential improvement. And obviously, you've invested into yourself continuously, and you're growing and expanding. You recently just, was it recent that you just finished the MBA?
This summer I finished it up. Yeah.
So what advice would you give for marketers that are kind of starting in their career? How do they think about investing in themselves? What are some of the things that you would see?
Yeah. So what I actually tell a lot of the team that works for me is there's a lot of awesome resources when it comes to HubSpot and Salesforce, just to learn the basics and trying to understand all the HubSpot courses. That is how we do a lot of our onboarding of new people. Is I'll go through all the HubSpot certifications and trainings to get them updated. The awesome part about it is it's not just learn how to use HubSpot. It's the holistic marketing theory. Then the other part is your MBA. it sounds silly, but I think it gives you, at least I wouldn't necessarily have you start an MBA right after college. I think it was really nice for me. I took what I think we were counting, it was like 16 or 17 years after college before I started my MBA, and I got so much out of it. And truth be told, the reason why it took me 17 years was because I was like, this is not worth it. I don't care. I can do whatever I want, blah, blah, blah. And then finally during COVID, I was like, okay, I have all this time now because, life isn't crazy enough. I'm going to start it. And I got so much out of it from understanding the business and the financial side and the why behind what we're doing and all of that, that I think it was a well worth it investment. And I can't stress that enough. And there's so much flexibility now with the different type of MBAs that you can get. I'm a very big proponent of it, which is, I think, ironic, my husband would say, because I raged against getting my MBA for a very, very long time. That being said, besides that, right, it's that continuing, LinkedIn is a great source, following the different people within the industry, learning from them, watching their careers grow, going to the different types of networking events, right, the American Marketing Association, all of that to just learn from each other. That's one of the things that I think is really interesting around marketing, is that we can learn from what other different marketing teams are doing. Like my hack for why I accept all the SDR stuff. I want to see what they're doing, right? That's something that I think is really important to instill in a marketer, is that they need to continue to figure out what's going on, what's happening next. Account-based marketing, right? That 2019, it wasn't really, I could be getting my dates wrong, but around there, 2019, 2018-ish, it wasn't really a big thing. And then all of a sudden it exploded. And you want to be on top of all these new technologies and things like that. Now, AI, right? So how can we leverage AI in order to do our jobs better? How can we leverage ChatGPT? How can we leverage these new forms? HubSpot just put out, right, their new AI content hub. What can we do? Staying on top of the technology is really important from a marketing perspective.
Obviously, we mentioned AI. Is there any predictions that you have of what's ahead in the marketing field?
So AI is not good enough, I don't think, for figuring out how to really write. So one of my friends who is also a head of marketing, we were talking shop the other day. We were talking about SEO and leveraging a chat GPT or something like that for SEO. And she's like, have you tried that yet? I was like, Google's got to figure that out. I don't think that. So I think there's something there, is it's not going to be the end all be all because of that. I think it will help facilitate things hey, ChatGPT, can you write me an outline? And then we can expand on it, or just to get your brain juices flowing, but I don't think that it will take over. I think it will change how we do things. It's exciting. I think that one thing it will do is it will allow smaller teams to look like bigger teams, just because of the time savings, the things that you would normally have to have a whole bunch of people do. I think AI is going to be able to do that. Yeah. But I don't think it's going to replace marketing.
Yeah, I think it's more of an enabler, helping people to be able to accomplish more. What I'm expecting from the AI revolution is the amount of energy that was spent on the top of funnel content, that's going to diminish because AI answers a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I think the energy needs to be spent more on the mid funnel and bottom of funnel sort of content strategy. And I think because of AI enabling everybody to be creating a ton of content in the written form, more video need to be created by organizations.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Become very difficult to stand out when everybody is just pumping out a lot of text form. You just don't know which one is actually his meaty subject that came from somebody who actually thought about what they're putting out versus something that AI just spat out, right? So which is where I feel like organizations need to start featuring leadership and subject matter expert to share their knowledge and expertise in the form of video content and then repurpose it in the...
Oh, yeah. Well, and they're going to have to be videos that seem real versus like an AI generated video too. Like, oh, I don't like them at all either. It creeps me out. I can't handle that at all. But I think that's the other part, is that it'll be interesting to see what we're going to have to do from a quality standpoint of like, does this look too polished? Does this look fake?
Yeah, some people are more gravitated toward an unpolished version of it too.
Yeah.
So they just want the more authentic,
gritty, like, oh, this was done on an iPhone, but now an iPhone is so good that like yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have a team that you're encouraging, and you've had multiple roles where you had a team of people that you oversaw. How do you encourage innovation and coming up with new ideas in your team?
I think it stems from my startup days, right? Of being the only marketing person. Is you learn to fail fast. And I believe in that. I know it's super cliche. There's no other better phrase. It's nice, quick. It's marketing. Is I am 100% open to doing any experiment anyone wants at any time, and the team knows that. Is let's try this out. Who knows what the results are, but let's measure them. Let's see if it's gonna work. We do this with the sales team even, right? So the sales team is, for us, the boots on the ground. We want to know, okay, what's working, what's not working. Do you guys have ideas? Like, we are open to all ideas. We only have we have a small team, so we can't execute all of them. But we love new ideas that you guys are hearing from your customers or anything like that. We want to try everything, because you don't know until you do it. It's not like, oh, we did that 5 years ago and it didn't work. Well, yeah, 5 years ago was before the pandemic. We did a lot of things 5 years ago that we didn't do that probably wouldn't work today. So I think that there's that openness, and really excited about everything. Like ABM, right? ABM was that whole new thing. It was an experiment. We got buy-in, and it actually worked. So I think that's the way to get buy-in, is making sure that everyone knows you're open, and you want to win.
Yeah, rewarding risk takers and not penalizing them for some of that. Yeah, and then that encourages people to just try new things without the fear of, oh my.
Well, and I think the other part too is like knowing that I've messed things up before too, so like that's super helpful.
Mm-hmm. So one last question. I'm sure we could talk a lot about marketing and all of those things. Knowing what you know today, what advice would you give the Emma Brittany?
I don't know. Oh, that's a really good question. What advice would I? Maybe start my MBA before the pandemic, but not so far that I don't have all the experience, because I think that would have probably helped. Maybe do it before the 2 kids. That probably would have helped with the balance. But other than that, maybe invest in Tesla, Google, like all those. Yeah. NVIDIA. It was a couple of years ago. But yeah, I think that it's all about the experience. So I don't know if I have any specific advice other than really enjoy the ride. And yeah.
Well, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for sharing your time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.